This is A Line Around Your Thoughts, a podcast that centers on conversations with artists, writers, musicians, and creatives from around the Inland Northwest. I'm your host, EJ Iannelli. On this episode, my guests are Marit Fischer, Chief Marketing Officer, and Rob Worstell, the Education Director at the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture, aka the MAC. And I got your name right.
So that's absolutely good. Correct.
And we have so much to talk about today, but it's not going to be the traditional or the conventional things that we might associate with the MAC, which are the exhibitions. We're going to talk about outreach, about education, about community building. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, there's so many more things to the MAC than just the exhibitions. Of course, we focus on the exhibitions. The programming that we build is around the exhibitions. But what Rob and I in particular are focused on, him through education and programming and me through marketing, is how we get more people there, how we open more doors wider and build community.
And make that museum relevant, right? Because we're competing against everything from people's time, right? From outside nature and all that good things that Spokane can offer. But you want to be able to use that exhibition as maybe a way in, but you want to continue to have a discussion and make people think and really reveal things about themselves or their family and friends through programming, for sure. Right.
And there's kind of a natural synergy between you two and the departments that you represent or the specialties that you represent, because Rob, you're the education director, so you're responsible in some part for kind of conceptualizing this stuff and executing it, but it's no good if nobody knows about it, and that's where you come in, Marit. 100%.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like talking to people the way they like to be spoken to. Right? But it's a gift, because I think there's a lot of talking at people, and that's not a way to be relevant to them. So that's
no. And I mean, again, it's a partnership. Without all of these different facets of the institution, the organization, that yes, Marit lets folks know and makes it look exciting. It's the interesting idea. Let's talk about a show or a samurai thing that maybe doesn't feel quite relevant to Spokane, but maybe it does when you actually talk about folks in this community that have ties to Japan or China and all that kind of stuff. Allows us to really do some really kind of interesting programming, but with partners and with Marit's help and all of that, it's great. We connect, we make new friends, we become relevant, and we learn a lot, right? And those things can get translated into other kinds of programs, like things we do with Spokane Public Schools or ESD 101, that we learn from those programs and learn from our partners. It's great. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
It's an iterative process.
Yeah, and a bit later, once we've covered some of these things, what I would really like to do is maybe kind of step back a little bit and get into maybe a more philosophical vein about why this stuff is even necessary. Yeah. Because it's really cool to talk about the events, and I think there's a certain self-evident quality to the events, but I also would really like to talk about that awareness raising and that education and that cultivation. So,
right.
But first I would like to talk about what exactly you're doing, and we're kind of hot on the heels of one of the more recent events, which was the teen night that I was at. And
why were you there?
And my daughter was there because she's part of the Teens at the MAC program, which is an initiative that you two started this year, no?
That's correct. Do you want to?
Yeah, no. I mean, this is something that in partnership with Spokane Public Schools, they came to us looking for some different ways to engage. A little bit of my background. We had a teen program where I worked before,
which was
at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston.
Thank you for getting the bio in. Yeah,
but it was a great program, and it was really one of these things where it was actually invigorating to watch what the teens could offer for folks that had been working. I'd worked at the MFA for 30 some odd years, and those teens every year would ask questions, would talk about things from the colonial stance that the museum represented to, how do we get the word out, and TikTok. It would range these things. And if you're doing the same work for 30 years, having those folks that actually poke you and make you think about things really is a benefit to everyone. And I wanted to do that here in Spokane as a person who grew up here, and there wasn't an opportunity for something like that when I was 17 or 16 when I lived here. At least I wasn't aware of it. That I was like, this is something that I think was really wonderful for the MFA and for those students that we worked with there. I want to make that happen here, and having those students from all the different schools in Spokane Public Schools come and talk to folks like Marit, talk to the director, talk to curators. There's all these different facets of what museum's doing, and it's exactly like you were saying in the intro. It's a collaborative effort, and I think to have them do a project and work like that collaboratively is something you might not get as much in school, right? You sit at your desk, you take your tests. Here they have to work as a team, and that's something that I think most jobs, even museums or not, are gonna reflect.
Right. And speaking of jobs, one thing that is a great aspect of this program is it introduces kids to other creative jobs that they may not have been aware of before.
Right.
So, you know, maybe they knew about curators but didn't know about development as part of a museum, or the directorship, or even marketing, which is a very creative job. But maybe kids who are really passionate about art at this stage, when they're 16 or 17 years old, they might not think about marketing as a way to go. And
to see an organization that's dependent on fundraising, and you know, they think about things in a different way. I think about a museum and these objects have always been there. No, there's a lot of study. There's a lot of thought and design on how they're put out and displayed. There's a lot of passion. When they met the curator of the swords show, he just was effusive in his love of these swords and everything about it. And you could see the kids, these students, light up. And it was that kind of magic, but they also have to see the other parts of it of, well, we got to raise some money here, or we got to market it and get the word out, all of those kinds of things. And it has to work if you want to be relevant.
Yeah. And relevant, I mean, the timing was perfect because of Adam Swinyard and Co.'s Engage in Real Life programming that they launched this year. You know, get kids off phones, get kids engaged in things that they can be passionate about, or ask them what their passions are and then build something that speaks to them. And that's really what Rob and his team did.
Well, and you saw it on teen night. Those kids it was a social event, right? They were talking, they were showing each other their work. They were listening to other students play music. They were engaged, right? And the phones are there. They can learn a lot, but there is a certain thing that I think is important right now, that we are actually connecting and meeting people from different parts. Not the same kids you went to school with in grade school and middle school and in high school. Well, you're meeting a kid from another part of town. That's good. Hopefully that'll bridge to when either you go to college or you move someplace else, that you're open to other people's ideas, right?
Yeah.
I think it's
that
really
was
key.
one of the things that the kids talked about specifically when they were designing the program, is they wanted this to be non-competitive because so much of the engagement between schools and high school, of course, is in sports when they're competing against each other, or the spirit wars during the basketball games, the groovy shoes, or the, you know, and that does kind of build some animosity, some resentment between schools. And this was a bridge. It felt really nice to see all the different schools there together.
Again, that was their story. They designed it and they executed it. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it makes the teens kind of stakeholders in what the MAC is about. And it also makes the museum seem like a much more dynamic place, because I know that even teens who make art and enjoy art, they tend to think of museums as things on walls, things on pedestals, and it's very static.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the fact that they're coming here and contributing to that life and contributing to that activity, it just makes the museum kind of come alive.
It's not just teens. Everybody thinks, a lot of people think about that about the museums, that they're just, I've done it, I've seen it. They're actually not. There's a lot of research, a lot of things going on. And that's part of our gig, is to reflect all that energy and dynamism, and to really let the kids get in and see it happen behind the scenes and actually contribute to that. I hope opened up their ideas on different kinds of careers that could go there. Because again, you think about things in popular media, you think about curators, you think about art theft. That's about the two big things that our museums have going for it in the movies. But there's actually a lot of really creative things. At the MFA, we had a great program with teens that was a STEAM program. And they had to move, a 5,000-year-old Egyptian monumental sculpture through a building that was 100 years old. There's a lot of engineering going on. And to have those kids talk to the guys, the engineers that had to move it safely without it, it was on a second floor. That was like, wow, there's a lot of math here that I had no idea. And it's kind of cool because this is a real life application to that math. So there's a lot of things you could do like that. And for me, as an education person, it's that letting somebody discover that's the joy in it, because it's like, wow, I didn't expect that. And it's kind of fun. Hopefully all those kids that were there on teen night, a lot of them are going to want to come back to museums and not see them as static.
Yeah. And now you had this initial cohort that was part of the launch year, and then the application process is about to open up for the 25-26 cohort. Is that correct?
It's open. Anyone who's interested should go to our website. The youth page, I believe, and there's a link that's live there where kids can put in their applications to participate next year. You can talk about the guidelines. I think it has to be Spokane Public Schools.
No, we're trying to broaden that for next year.
Okay.
We'd like to have it is going to be a limited cohort. We can't take all comers, unfortunately, just because we want to have a really quality experience with those students. So if we'll probably have something like 15 or 18 as opposed to 8 this year. Where, you don't have to be a senior. The vast majority were seniors. But part of it is you have to be art interested. You have to be committed to it, that you actually are going to show, if you're going to do this, you're taking a spot that's kind of precious, right? There's 35 or 40 people that want to do this. You have to respect that. We do push to have them work with their career counselors to do a resume and do an interview, because I think that's a good process that we all have to go through, and the more practice they get is part of that. So it's a bit structured, but it's also supposed to be fun. It's after school. I feed them pizza. So so they
from Pack Pizza.
Yeah, Pack, which is a great pizza. But no, it's a lot of fun, and it really is one of these things that it's positive. That's the future. Those are the museum goers. Those are the museum workers. That's the members. That's what we're working for. Museums might be based on things that are old, but they're actually trying to make a space for the future. You're collecting those things to have a communication with people that are yet to come to visit.
Yeah, I think one thing that Rob and I talk about is not only making museums relevant or art relevant, art of all kinds relevant, but also making the museum that we're focused on right now a participatory place, which goes back to what you were saying about engaging the kids and making them feel like they belong there.
Yeah.
And that is the difference. We've also talked about there's a difference between making people feel welcome or saying you're welcome here, and then having them in turn say, I'm welcome, I'm going.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big difference. And as a marketer and a communicator, I think about that a lot and really work in a lot of different ways to prompt people to action, to actually come. Because I think, honestly, now, more than any time in my life, it's a really important time to go to the museum.
Yeah.
To show your support and pay the admissions fee and, become a member, because we've got some stuff happening.
Yeah, the arts community is a tight community, right? Yeah. The creatives. And I think that but it's inclusive. Mm-hmm. It's people that enjoy the creative outputs of folks. It's the creative conversations. So again, I think Marit has been doing a wonderful job. We try to be different points of entry. You could have a lecture that you want to sit and learn and lifelong learning type of thing, but you can also have a social time at after hours where it's just about being in a space with other folks, talking, listening to music, walking the galleries, and not really having anything imposed other than what you want to be there for. And I think that's what museums need to and are doing, is trying to find different ways to be that space, right?
And on that note, you're turning the MAC almost into a performance venue with the Curators of Sound concert series. So here is something that's almost, to some degree, divorced from the visual art and is now a much more performance art or performing art.
From, because I think it's really easy to compartmentalize or silo. This is art. And I think we tried to address that by even calling the series Curators of Sound. And to give people a background, this is a partnership that the MAC, brand new, has with Live from Somewhere. We've talked about Live from Somewhere. You've talked about them plenty of times on your podcast.
They keep coming up.
But it's an ecosystem, right? These guys are visual artists. They make videos, right?
Yeah, they do.
They video, their editing, their production is just amazing. Their sound is amazing. But they're working with performing artists who are talented musicians from all these different genres. So all of that ecosystem we want to be a part of, right? And this might not be your traditional museum concert because we're going to have heavy metal and hippie
Country.
death cult and all that kind of thing, but at the same sentence, that why couldn't it be? Why can't this be something that anybody can sit there and have a great time? And I think the beauty of their curation is that they are mixing genres, right? Where I wouldn't have thought to do that, but this is where they're like, oh, this is cool. We're going to fit these things together to help you discover something that you might not. I would not have probably listened to as much hippie death cult until I watched their video, and now it's on my Spotify. So
Right.
yeah,
And this is going to be the third Wednesday of June, July, and August, and
That's right.
each one is a different lineup that's
Of
been
different
curated by Live from Somewhere, and it's going to be videoed by them. And but each lineup has this melange of genres that's really going to be something for everybody.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a complement to what Rob has been focused on with the teens, I have been focused on opening the doors to a younger subset of young professionals or just young people who may not have felt welcome at the MAC before. And we call this the MAC, the Millennial Advisory Committee. Millennial is loose. We have some 20-somethings all the way up to some young 40-somethings. Doesn't matter. But really, I just wanted to, in the spirit of opening the door, reach out to young people who are maybe passionate about art or, art teachers or, in some way they had an association with the MAC. It could have been that they went to a field trip there when they were a kid and, okay, it sounds interesting. I'll go check it out. But this is a cohort of, I think we have about just under 20 now. Younger people, not interestingly, I was told at one of our events by a guy, this is a little brief parenthetical comment, that the MAC was only for old white rich people.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is something that as a museum professional or wherever you work, you need to take that to heart. That is the public
100%.
perception,
Yeah.
right? And so what we are doing is not battling that, but saying, okay, we see that, we recognize that. How can we gradually change that? Not by doing something ourselves and enforcing it upon someone, but by saying, okay, we want to change. And so we're going to give up some agency here and share with them in creating the place that they want to have as their living center of art and culture.
Right.
And in asking that question of this group of young professionals, they brought up in our first meeting, like, art isn't just visual art.
Mhm.
Art is
Yeah.
music. Art is dance. Art is
Food.
Food.
They
brought
talked
up
a lot about
food.
the food culture in Spokane, and I think the music and food culture in Spokane is super rich, right? And we're just trying to tap into something that is already there, right? But we're trying to connect and show that, hey, we can. There's part of this that is relevant, and this is a good venue, and we want to learn from you. So let's work with these partners.
Yeah. So the MAC actually, they are the power, I guess, behind all of this. They're the volunteers who are making it happen. They're going out and finding sponsors. And, they're doing a great job. Primera, VIP, the Inlander, Visit Spokane, Dry Fly. I mean, these are all businesses in town that believe in what we're doing and believe in this diversification. And now we're going to have this brand new live outdoor music series at the MAC.
Yeah. No, and activate the space, make it dynamic.
Yeah.
I think importantly, this proceeds from a very genuine and authentic place. It's not saying like, hey, we want to, you're really looking to share the MAC as a performance space and expand its doors or throw open its doors even wider. It's not just it's not like a marketing exercise. It is a real genuine attempt to.
Right. I think one thing that some marketers and public misperception about marketing is that it's just, doing ads and putting them in the right place at the right time. But so much of marketing is communicating to people in the way they like to be communicated to, that, like I said, but also building relationships. And I take that very seriously. I love meeting our community. I love listening to our community, and it's in building these relationships and then, building things that are relevant to them that I feel like I can do my job.
Yeah. And these things, again, it's a genuine, we invest lots of time. They invest tons of time, our partners, on this. We've been working on this thing for probably a year or 9 months at least to get to this point. And it's going to be launching next month. The same thing with some of our other programs with partners, like our stories. Those were ones that we would spend, months developing and getting to know, and them getting to know. And there's a lot of trust. And I think that that's an investment, again, for the future. That kind of dialogue, that kind of trust only helps to make the institution stronger. As you said, the museum this is Spokane's museum, one of Spokane's museums, but one of the bigger Spokane museums, and it is there for everybody. So trying to make it to a place that you can come in, and if you just want to walk through the galleries and enjoy some art and have some time there, that's there. There's hours that we don't have a ton of traffic, that there's also times where you can just be there and it's kind of like a party. Yeah. And that's great. But we want to make sure that folks' stories are reflected, their art forms are reflected, their talents are reflected, and really kind of say that, Spokane has a lot of stuff going on for it. Yeah. A lot of people they kind of sometimes are disparaging about it, but it really has a lot of wonderful creative people here.
Well, and working with Rob on the programming side, when he's talking about, giving communities a place to share their voices, right? I think of programming more as a fast twitch muscle in a museum. So yes, absolutely, it takes months of planning. But compared to an exhibition that can take years of planning, and then it's, there's so much involved in an exhibition. When we launch one, it's there for 3 to 6 months to a year. And there, that is one story that's present. I'm not dismissing it. It's incredibly important and it's beautiful. But what about having more programming that is in some way related to community building or voice amplifying, that is a way for people in our community to tell their stories that's different from an exhibition.
And you never know how that could end up being part of an exhibition later on, right?
Perhaps.
If you make these connections when it comes to a partner with like Asians for Collective Liberation, working with Eastern Washington University and Stephen Bingo and the research he was doing, I think could eventually turn into something that could be a show about Spokane that otherwise wouldn't have happened. So I think all of this is, again, as you said, we're fighting that perception that museums are a static. Once I've seen it, I've done it. That's great. That was good for me, supposedly. No, it's about a dynamic place that is where you can meet, have dialogue, and hopefully discover things. And I think that's, again, going back to the teen night, those guys, they got that. They were like, okay, we want to have this facet. We want to have video games because that's a thing. We want to have film here. We want to have music and all of those kinds of, those kinds of things going on at different spots. But because we want you to walk around and discover that and see what you like, and you might like something that you didn't know you like.
I love that. The idea of discovery. We hosted the Inlander Best of Party this year at the MAC, and working with them was wonderful because they wanted to have this sense of discovery at every corner. Like, a lot of these people had not been to the MAC ever or since they were little kids. And coming back for the first time after so much time away, even that sense of discovery kind of became like a reunion time for them. Like, oh, I remember, and now I can create new memories. It's actually lovely.
Well, and we have a lot of stuff that's kind of all the time I spend on my phone and the ads that I get and things like that, things are fed to me. It's wonderful when I didn't really realize that I would like this particular band. I never give it a chance. Didn't know anything about it. Now I've found it, and now I'm like, wow, I can't get enough of it. That's fun. I mean, you only get so many orbits. You got to discover things and always keep thinking.
Break the algorithm.
Exactly. But and that's the thing. It is true serendipity. It's
Yeah.
not just determined by an algorithm because,
Yeah.
YouTube dishes up a lot of stuff that I, recommended if you like, and that's okay. But these are things that might be outside of your comfort zone. And
Right.
so, YouTube might not dish up hippie death cult, but, you certainly get it here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surprise.
And 100%. And actually getting to meet them is incredibly great, gracious performers too. They were super cool.
And
I
can we
love
talk?
that.
Can we
Yeah.
talk about just some of the bands by name that are going to be part of this? Because I saw T.S. The Solution. I mean, he seems to be everywhere. He's certainly at the first concert.
He's going to be at the first concert. Yeah. So at the first concert, we have kind of pop with RCA and the Radicals. We have T.S. The Solution, which of course is rap, hip hop. Then Fat Lady is like a blues band.
Right.
And then Nothing Shameful, self-described as, what did they call themselves? Screamers.
Oh,
Or
wow.
that, no,
Okay.
I mean, it's like rock.
Yeah, it's some pop-ish influence too there. So I mean, I think it's
Super
really kind
fun,
of cool.
hilarious. Yeah.
So no, it's no, I think it's and what's cool is that this is their local bands or semi-local bands that but at least Pacific Northwest bands for the most part. Talking to the folks from Hippie Death Cult again, sorry to got dwell on that one so much.
You're a fan.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because they
That's
were
really
all
good.
over their Northern European tour, and I'm like, wow, you have a huge following there, and I'm just discovering, but they're like Portland. But anyway, so there
But
was
you're like 54. I mean,
57.
57. Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's not like one of these things that I'm out
Hippie
there.
Death Cult is opening more doors wider to more people.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah.
But so yeah, no, it's but it's a lot of fun, and again, that's where hopefully some of the fun that we have translates to people, the audience that come, right?
Yeah.
Those teens to you, not only being a proud dad, but enjoying walking around the museum. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be work. I mean, it is. It reflects humans, right? These are their
Yeah.
things that they make, their art, their histories, and there's a lot of great stories there.
And you've got these new initiatives. You've got Curators of Sound, which is new. You've got Teens at the Mac and the Mac, which are all new. And then you've got the things that you are very well known for, and that's ArtFest, and that's coming up. What is it? May 30th and June 1st, and this is the Big 40, huh?
Yeah.
This,
40 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not this. Yeah. So I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
it's
the
coming
40th
up.
It's the 40th year
Yeah.
in just a couple weeks or this week.
Yeah, it's there've been iterations of this over time. We started at the Mac and then went to Coeur d'Alene Park, and they were there for several years. And then
right.
COVID happened, and then there was a decision after COVID to bring the art festival back to the Mac grounds for a lot of reasons. I mean, a lot of people. I don't run the social. I'm kind of over the social. I see all the social comments, and there's always like, oh, I wish it was back the way it was.
Yeah.
But honestly, when it was at the park, it was really hard to secure because the art, of course, it's there for the whole weekend. And we experienced a lot of vandalism and a lot of theft, not some theft. And the artists were the ones that said, hey, we need to make this safer. If we're going to continue to make this sustainable. And so we did bring it back so we can fence in everything.
And open the museum, right? The
Yeah,
museum.
and
Yeah.
it
The
draw
museum's-
people to the museum. It's really important. Yeah.
So no, and I mean it's great, and it's like again connecting instead of something that might be a little bit more virtual. You're working. Those are real artists selling the things that they make, right? This is their heart and soul is poured into these objects. They're beautiful. They can be ranging. Their price points range pretty wildly, but a ceramic piece to a printmaking to that. But you can actually meet the artists and talk to them about their work, which is not always the case, even in a gallery setting where those works are there, but the artist is rarely. So this is an opportunity to actually talk to the folks who make it and absorb some of that passion.
Yeah, and I think that's why Terrain's Bazaar and Burzar and events like that and like ArtFest are so popular. And even the farmers markets, it's because you get that face-to-face interaction, and suddenly, this art, this product, whatever it happens to be, is humanized, and it takes on a human dimension because you can see the force behind it.
Right. It cultivates the emotion.
Yeah.
There's room for the artist to talk about why they made what they made, and what emotion it evoked in them, and to have that human experience.
And I think once you start doing this a lot, and you go to the Terrain, you go to us, you go listen to live music, you'll see it in other social settings. Again, maybe it's because it's dinner time. The food, people that actually craft really great food or work on that is the same thing. And you can enjoy that. And it can be just like, wow, I never thought I would like this. I just discovered something new. That epiphany is what I think museums and art and arts culture, performance, dance, whatever, that's that. And trying to get people to be open to it, because most people, I don't get it. Well, think about it when you eat something that's like, wow, that's super great. That's that same feeling.
And I think we get it more than we realize.
I think you're right.
Yeah, because when we think of art, we tend to think of the abstract and maybe the stuff that's more on the avant-garde. But there is so much that is going on that is incredibly accessible. And I think that's what, for example, Curators of Sound, or even through the Teens at the Mac program, it's showing how accessible art actually is and how ubiquitous art actually is.
And once a person realizes everything in their environment, from the tables, the chairs, was drawn sometime. And that same thing where somebody had an idea and it's been translated into something real. That's that same thing. And that's when you start really enjoying it. It's like, wow, that's cool. That's art.
Right. It's like the name of your show, A Line Around Your Thoughts, right?
Yeah.
That's what art is. It's also when thoughts become things, you know?
Yeah.
Like you think about what was the beginning of this table? How did this come to be? And you think about it, well, it was a thought. Someone thought about the table. And that is a human experience. And then creating the table is a human experience. And we as humans are not just one experience either. So when you think about anything that we do, anything that we choose, anything that we bring into our lives because we love that thing, it doesn't define us, and it's not the only part of us.
Yeah.
So in our diversifying our programming and our diversifying the number of different artists that we bring in, whether it's musicians or artists at ArtFest or the different cultures that we feature with our art stories. I mean, this is what we're doing, is we're showing what it is to be human and showing that we do that at this place. And the place then can be a living center or a heart instead of just a repository of stuff that might be of interest.
It's not a warehouse of objects. And again, it's really just kind of a reawakening. It's like, okay, well, there was a time that live edge tables weren't a thing, but now that aesthetic is something that I recognize. If you start actually thinking about things like that, and I think you'd appreciate many more things and make the navigating your days. Everybody's talking about it can be a really kind of a downtime or whatever. There are things that once you recognize it, can bring a lot of joy. And I think it's important now more than ever. And I really do think that the social connection is super key to that. And having a conversation, have somebody actually share something and have you realize that that could mean something to you is something that as a society we only get better from. And right now.
Yeah, and that is a great jumping off point for our stories. But I want to make sure that we've addressed what's in store for ArtFest. And
sure.
Because you've got, I think, 75 artists that are coming in for this.
Yeah. 75 artists from all over Montana, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Utah. I think that about covers it.
There's music.
Yeah, plus live music. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have, this is just part of our, art isn't just visual art, right?
Yeah.
So we have music performances every day.
Art making with kids.
For
families.
Yeah.
So no, it's a
trucks.
festival. Food trucks.
Yeah.
Right.
The culinary.
Yeah, the coffee.
Yeah.
Good coffee.
Yeah, no, but it's and it's it's a great way to connect. I think they get 10,000 visitors on that weekend, which is wonderful. And really, we have bring in people from hours away. I mean, Spokane can serve as a hub for lots of places, and this is a great thing that the museum can offer up. So no, I think it's a great thing, and a lot of fun. A lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And is there anything special planned for the 40th, or is it just building on the 39 preceding years?
Well, EJ, we have rebranded.
Oh,
We have a delightful new brand. We hired a local designer, Danielle Davis, to do our new brand for us. It's fantastic and whimsical and light and all the things that we're really trying to convey. This is us at the MAC. So that is a really nice thing. And then, of course, using the local designer is really important to us. We want to promote local artists. And then other than that, I would just say that it's a juried show. It's so well curated. I heard so many anecdotal comments last year. This is the best art festival I've been to, where every single participant is such high quality. That's a really special
there was
experience.
over 200 applications or whatever the process was to get their work out there, and we only have a space for 70. So it is, have to be some things that are wonderful that can't make it in, but there is a theme to it, if you would.
Yeah.
There's a lot of curation when it comes to it.
Right. And a real effort on the part of the organizers to have a nice balance of different media as well. And then I would say one thing to look forward to this year is the yard games. Yeah.
fill us in.
Well, cornhole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing where you throw the rope and the balls and it. Yeah. So that's something fun for.
Very cool. Very cool. So it's interactive.
It's interactive. Yeah.
Come and play. That's the whole point. Like, we have the food, we have the music, we have
beer
the
garden.
art. Yeah.
So May 30th, June 1st, we've got ArtFest. Then June 18th, first Curators of Sound concert. Going to be busy. And then on June 27th,
Yes.
you've got the Our Stories.
Our Stories, Black Families in Spokane. It's the second Our Stories in the series this year. The first one was Our Stories, Asian American Families in Spokane, which was the kickoff of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. That was at the MAC.
Yep.
And then we have Black Families.
Black Families, and then we have one this fall that is Our Stories of Veterans. So lots of that community is also huge in Spokane. So the Our Stories Black Families of Spokane, actually, they worked with us last year, and they helped us actually formulate this idea of really let's talk about stories that are lesser known. I grew up here in Spokane, went to North Central High School, did not know that there was a gentleman, Colonel Holscomb, who was a Tuskegee Airman that was, and that, you see this with Tom Hanks and his films, but this happened here in Spokane in the same place that I grew up, and I did not have any idea. There's a lot of stories around, Fort George Wright and the Buffalo Soldiers.
Yeah.
There's all of those kinds of histories, and that's Spokane. And again, a lot of people think, Spokane, it's pretty homogenous, one racial makeup, but the story is wide, and there's a lot, and all of these folks interacted and have really compelling, interesting stories. We talk about the Campbells and the Campbell House all the time, and it's a great story about what the mining history of Spokane and that, but we use that time frame to talk about some other folks that lived here, from when we were with the Asian American stories, we learned a lot about the Yen families, which were Spokane pioneers in a place called Trent Alley, downtown Spokane,
right,
that was taken down during the Expo 74. But that was kind of, if in a way, Spokane's Chinatown, if you would.
Yeah.
Had all of a whole a cultural site that was part of the history. Well, this is a way that we can reveal that. And there's a lot of people coming to Spokane that might not know these things. So it's an opportunity for us to share those stories, but better yet, we get these stories from family members or folks that were connected to those individuals or those stories, and it becomes much more personal. We all love to open up our photo albums and talk about, this or that our grandmothers, or this story there, that was that same thing. And then again, connecting as human beings wow, that is relevant to me. I had no idea. That's really cool. I did not know that was there. And it's a great takeaway. It's a lot of fun, and it really does make some wonderful connections, and I think really do allow us some ways to build content that we can put into other programming, right? We have a thing called Stories at the Vault on our after hours. We'll talk about different businesses in Spokane. Well, we now know a lot more about the AYN exchange that was in Trinali. We can talk about that. We can have it in a MacPack that goes out to a school and talking about, because there's an immigration part of the curriculum that is there. We can talk about folks that came not only from Ellis Island, but San Francisco, the two different ends, ended up in Spokane, right? So you can talk about these things.
Or that worked the railroads was a big part of it, or the laundries,
Right.
So much is relevant to us.
And so it's not just us saying, oh, this is what we want. This was actually brought to us with a partner. And again, working over
tell
months,
their own
and
stories.
we work together, and we want to talk, like this year with on the one on the 27th on the African American stories. We're going to talk about the Pirates Den, which was a club on East Sprague that Louis Armstrong played at. It was owned by African American owners. It was African American folks could only go one night a week, but it was open 6 nights a week. But they had great, jazz performers. That was here in Spokane, right? So we want to talk about that as a thing that, wow, that's part of our history. Again, there's a lot of music. There's always been a lot of art in Spokane. We don't always accentuate it, but we should.
And what is the format for this? Is it held in the Campbell House, and then do you have people from a certain generation sharing these stories? Like, how are these stories imparted to the audience?
There's family members in Campbell House that have objects or photographs or scrapbooks that we actually get things out of our collection, and they'll talk about stories about those businesses. We'll have performances happening out in our campus. We'll have art making. We'll have food trucks. It's a free day at the museum that's really about let's celebrate Spokane's history, and here's one portion of it. So, and again, we have individuals that get some training from us, but they're telling their stories. They're not museum employees. They are folks that are tied to these organizations or families. We have community organizations like we're having the NAACP and the Carl Maxey Center and the Black Lens that will be there for talking about their organizations, but there'll also be performance, and we're bringing in Mona Lake Jones, a poet who grew up in Spokane, was a poet laureate on the West Side, but she grew up here. We're bringing her back, and hopefully going to get a history from her, and that'll become part of our archives, I hope.
Tied in with modern day poets like AJ.
AJ the Wordsmith?
AJ the Wordsmith will be there. Having multi-generations, you asked about of a certain generation. It's like, no. Yes, but I mean, maybe the descendants of the pioneers who are telling their family stories and then telling their stories as well.
Right.
And this shows my thinking, like my immediate supposition is that because it's a museum, it's going to be something associated with the past. And maybe that betrays a certain line of thought that you're attempting to counter with all these events.
Yeah. Perhaps, or we
just
all
a through
are.
line, right?
Yeah, exactly. We all are what we have been, whether generationally or familially. We come from some place, and that informs who we are. And that is such a beautiful thing when we give people the microphone to say, this is where I came from. This is who I am. This is why I am the way I am. This is what I want to be in the future.
That's where I was going to go. Is I think it's not only who we are and who they were, it's who we want to be, right? This is the story that I think that's interesting, is that all of these things are built on each other, and if you forget or erase things, they cease to be relevant or important. But if you actually have it awakened, then that becomes something that you can think about and build on for the future. And that's what we're trying to do with these stories.
Well, and in their coming to the museum, I want to be clear on this. We are not othering and saying this is about Asian Americans only, This is a way to show that this group is a passionate part of our community. We are all welcome here. Let's all come together and celebrate the history that we didn't know that we shared.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, that process of discovery,
Yeah.
you know, the history and the art and all the other things that weren't necessarily part of your worldview before suddenly are.
Yeah. And that's you know, that's why that's the relevancy there. We want to be that. So.
And so you're creating all these entry points. And I think it was you, Rob, who mentioned this. And you had talked about sort of the one and done nature of a museum, where you come for an exhibition and you see it. Maybe if you love it, you see it twice. And then that's your only interaction with the museum for that period.
Yeah.
And then all of these events are, you know, again, to hearken all the way back to the beginning of the conversation when we were talking about making the museum more dynamic, this creates all those additional entry points with the museum for folks.
Yeah, no, and I mean, to be honest, in the museum industry, visiting twice a year is seen as a frequent visitor, right? Most people, or they go to Boston, go to New York, go to DC. You visit the museums. Okay, I'm done. I did that. Check. On to the next thing. We don't want that. We want to turn you into a person who actually feels like, oh, this is a great thing. I want to use the museum for my brain like I would use a gymnasium for my muscles, right? That you want to keep learning things. You want to keep understanding there's things to discover to keep yourself on top, right? You want to. It's another way to exercise that muscle, that gray matter muscle.
Yeah. To honor your own well-being.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't have to like. That's the thing with people. Oh, I'm not going to go to the art museum because I don't like that art. Well, you don't have to like the art. It's great not to like the art. If you don't
have an opinion.
Yeah, you know, that is. I am so glad you brought that up, because I think there is an assumption that if you go to the art museum, it's because you're expected to like it, and you can actually be repulsed by the art. You know,
you want to think more about it. It's like why, and all that kind of stuff. That as long as it gets you thinking. I think then it's done its job. And in just being able to be a participant, going to the theater, going to the concerts, going out, and participating in society, I think is important for us. Instead of hiding in our basements, behind our computers, really I think does nothing but alienate. These kind of things can build us into a much better future.
Right. When you think about even what you said earlier about that element of discovery and surprise, what a great thing to actually go to experience something and dislike it or have it not work for you, and then be able to intelligently process that and why you didn't like it, and then perhaps have a conversation about it. And, like, we need more discourse.
The crazy thing is the more people go, the more they might not like it at the beginning. And then they're like, okay, I can kind of see it and I'm fine. You know, it's kind of like, you trying something over and over. You might grow to like it. You might not. But at least if you're out there participating, you're thinking.
Yeah.
And this kind of takes us into that realm of when I said, again, at the outset, that I really wanted to discuss why these programs are necessary, why make Teens at the Mac, why create that program and get teens involved. And I'd like to explore it just a little bit more as to why these programs are so important and why these touch points are so important. And is it simply to bring folks in to have that visceral emotional reaction, or is it to cultivate a sense of community? Is it a little bit of all the above?
Yeah, I would say all of
lots of things. Yeah, not just one thing. Well, you think about the brand of the Mac. The Mac was founded in 1916. So it's 109 years old. What do you do with that, right? Unless you're constantly, thinking about who you are and how you're relevant, you become irrelevant.
Right. Well, and also think about yourself, right? You weren't always a parent. You weren't always a professional. There's different points in your life you're doing different things. And honestly, you can find relevancy. That's also why we want to have different points for you to come in, because you're not the same person that you were 5 years ago. But we still want you to come when you're coming now. So we need to do things to make sure that that we can try to connect with you at different points. And I think that's also kind of fun because you know, once you feel like, oh, that is good and I'm comfortable there, I think the biggest barrier is people just feel like, oh, it's not for me because I'm uncomfortable because they've never tried it. Mm-hmm. And so if there are different ways to come in at different points in your life, you're more likely to say, oh, that was fine and that was fun. I didn't realize this could be fun. You're more likely to come back and see, oh, okay, now I'm at a different point. I want to go to an academic lecture. That was cool, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and you ask why it's important. Why is community important? I mean, I think there's different answers from every single person. Why community? First of all, what is community? Mm-hmm. And we've talked a lot about this. Yeah. How do you define community? Well, let's just pare it back and think about, well, where do you belong? Where do you feel like you have this sense of belonging? Start with that. Mm-hmm. And what does it mean to belong? Am I welcome there? Okay, let's start with that. Yeah. I think it's more than that. I think when you think about it philosophically, yes, you're welcome there, but in what way do you how do you see yourself? How do you, identity even is a strange philosophical thing to think about. Mm-hmm. Who am I when I am there? Do I like who I am when I'm participating and when I'm thinking about things differently? We don't want to define that. No. We just want to give the opportunity for people to think about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And honestly, and define, and a lot of it's centering in on the human. It's those stories. It's that, oh, I had a grandmother and this is it, or I knew this thing, or that was made by a person. And that, I think there's that connection, and that's the universality, and that's that community is like, it's okay. These are something that we all like discovery. We all are, curious to a point, but we also love to, feel like it's comfortable. And I think that we're doing a lot of work to try to make it comfortable.
Yeah.
And do you feel as though there's greater impetus to engage in activity and positive community-oriented activity like this now, given kind of the national zeitgeist and given how things are headed? I know for me, it tends to make me want to go hyper-local and focus on focus on a smaller group and make sure that I'm, I mean, it might sound cliche, but kind of giving love where it's needed.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you feel this as well, and maybe that lends a greater sense of urgency to why you're doing these programs.
For me personally, it does. Mm-hmm. I think about my personal, I might be different than most marketers, I don't know, but I think about my personal philosophy and why I do the work that I do and why I care so deeply, and then why I put so many hours into it. Is it fulfilling that personal philosophy of being someone who can connect people and leading with love? Mm-hmm. And that may sound ridiculous to most business people out there, but for me personally, if I'm not leading with love, I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. Mm. And I do, speaking about myself, I do want to lead with love always and provide anything that I do. I want there to be a reason for others to connect with me.
Yeah.
And I try to translate that into my work at the MAC and my work with Rob. Rob's an exceptional partner in this. I think anyone listening can hear how we work together.
It's fun. We enjoy working on these things, and it's a lot of fun. And it's great to have colleagues that you connect with and can and really feel like you're on the same page.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think what you're saying is I have to use things like this to keep me from narrowing in and trying to get out of an echo chamber where I don't want to hear things. I don't want to, blah, blah, blah. I just want to, I could go hide on my hillside with my goats, and that's all I need.
And your morels.
Yeah, and my morels and my goats. But no, I think actually getting out and listening to people and seeing them enjoy things and hearing the stories of the veterans, hearing the stories of African-American folks and with their experience, all of that just keeps reawakening to me that, no, this is a community, not just Spokane, not just United States, not whatever. It can be broader, is as broad or as narrow as you want, and I need to be reminded that I want to be part of that instead of hiding away from other people. I mean, I'm an introvert a lot of times, but at the same degree, these things actually bring a lot of joy in discovering and learning these things about new things and people, and saying, well, people are actually pretty damn good, is where I want to be.
Yeah, me too. I think that's one thing that really moved me when I first gathered the candidates for the MAC. One of the guys that showed up said that, he and his wife went to school in California, and she was from here, and so they moved here kind of post-COVID era to figure out where they were going to go, and their thought was, well, we'll leave here after a little bit, after we regroup. But they decided to stay in Spokane because they felt that they could make a difference in Spokane.
100%.
And I think that Spokane is incredibly unique in that way, with the size of this city and the makeup of this city, to still feel like you can be one person and make a true difference.
Yeah. No, it's that's definitely something from working in a larger city that it feels, actually, I thought it was one point in my career that, this will be one thing, but it's actually really shown me that some things that you can do actually can make a bigger difference. Like that teen thing. That was something we already did, and I was familiar with it, but I'm in 30 years of working, I had never had everyone at the end of the night help pack up, have a wonderful thing. That community thing, I mean, Boston was a great city. I love it. And it's home too. But there was a different vibe, and that joy, and those kids, and so proud of their work, all of that stuff, that is invigorating, and that's the future. So I think there's a lot of great things that, and opportunities, and a lot of great, smart, wonderful people here that really want to connect. And if we can make a forum for that, that's what we're there for.
Yeah.
That is a great note on which to close. But you might be prepared for this, Marit. I don't know if you are, but you have listened before, and you might be bracing yourself for the lightning round.
Okay, let's go.
So,
tell them what it is first.
So the lightning round is just questions that are not related, although kind of maybe, to our conversation. And this is just a little more open-ended, but it allows us to go into explore some tangents that we wouldn't have otherwise.
I'll try not to swear.
No throwing an arm over here.
So this will probably be an easy one, but a favorite, and this is going to be informed by our conversation. So I want you first to talk about the favorite exhibition of just the past couple of years, something that came through that you were really excited about.
Here or...
What? You know what? Let's open it up. So an exhibition that you enjoyed, it could be at the MAC, it could not.
I got one.
Okay.
I loved Sound Blossom. I saw it at the Utah Museum of Fine Arts, and in this was an opera singer that's walking around the galleries and comes up and taps you on the shoulder and says, "Can I sing to you?" And I said yes, and it was just me and her in the gallery, and she sang an aria just to me, and I've not had a more emotional experience. I mean, it was right up there with like giving birth to my daughter, right? But okay, so in a museum, it was my most emotional experience.
Yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed the Frank Matsura show that we had. There was a connection that he had, and this is 1915, and you're thinking about a person from another culture completely, and he ends up in OMAC. Just the weird backstory that these photographs were there, and you kind of actually see in the as a photographer and as a person who enjoys art, his connection and what he was able to do with people with the equipment that he had was pretty amazing. And I had no idea. And it was that discovery. It's like, wow, that is a super cool story. And that's a really kind of a cool American story. And it's from here. And I had no idea. And I stumbled upon it. I went into that show the day before I interviewed to work here. And I was like, this is so cool, and I just need to know more. Now I've been reading books and all the rest of that stuff, but that was a really fun one for me.
And so the second part of that is informed by our conversation, an exhibition that you hated, an exhibition that gave you that kind of visceral reaction. So even if it's not hate, but a strong negative reaction. This is a difficult one because it's easy to talk about the positives, but is there an exhibition that you just did not care for?
I can say that a Chihuly show.
Okay.
That at the MFA, which was super popular, but I had worked with a lot of glass blowers in Boston, and they had opened my eyes to some things that made me not. I went in with a more closed mind than I maybe should have had because of long conversations and maybe one or too many beers with these guys. But that was a show that kind of turned me off because it felt a little too prescribed, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, mine was one from the Mac before I started. I've been there 2 years, but I did not like the Audubon show. I felt the energy of that, and I learned more about him. That was my least favorite.
Yeah, sometimes, the heroes or the folks who have been put on a pedestal, once the biographical information comes out, it's you view the art a little differently.
Very much. I think that, it's everyone's prerogative. I couldn't look at the art the same way.
But again, there you go. You learned and you're discerning, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah. And so this is kind of directed at you, but I'm sure Rob, you've got something in this category. But your favorite advertising campaign, is there one that's particularly memorable that sticks out to you where you think, man, that was super clever?
So this is so weird. I grew up in Spokane, and it's so weird. Back in the days of jingles, I'm 53 years old. Okay, so there was this pizza commercial back then, and I still, swing low, sweet pizza truck. Bring a hot pizza to my home. Call 489-8989. Bring a hot pizza to my home.
Wow.
I would like to advise people, do not call 489-8989. No, it's amazing how the jingles, effective jingles get in your head.
I know, I want to bring back jingles. Who can I talk to?
Yeah.
I'm. You thrown me. I have no one on that one.
Random.
I have no answer. He says. So nothing memorable from childhood. No jingles that get stuck in your head.
No, I can tell you that I was pretty
Chi-Chi.
addicted to the beginning of every MTV's thing with the rocket and the whole thing. I spent way too many hours in front of MTV.
No, you didn't.
So,
Every hour was worth it. I lament the death of the music video. Yeah.
What an era that was.
Yeah, hours and hours of that.
Yeah.
And then lastly, your favorite time of day. Are you a morning person? Are you an afternoon siesta? Are you a morning person, Marit?
Oh, are you surprised?
No, I'm not. But I could also see you kind of being a night owl as well.
No. At this point in my life, I'm very much a morning person.
Have you always been?
No, not in high school and college, the late nights of studying and, but since, this whole phase of the last probably 20 years of my life, I'm a morning person. I get up and...
How early?
These days about 4:45.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
I like to get a workout in before I go to work, and I, have a kid.
Yeah.
And life just gets regimented, and if I can have a moment to myself to do something just for me. And I love the morning light. Today's sunrise was incredible. The pinkest I've seen in a long time. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, there is something special about the morning, and it's really nice kind of waking up and kind of moving around in the half light. Like you just feel like you've got to jump on the day. But I'll tell you, I had a paper route when I was in grade school and high school, and that was the only time that I was a real morning person. And I think that was merely out of obligation. I've never been able. Rob,
I'm a morning person too. But
oh wow, two morning people.
But
okay.
It actually started from actually being in the Navy when I worked. I was on the flight deck of the USS Carl Vinson, an aircraft carrier, and I worked nights. And usually you never got to look up and see any stars because you're too busy doing stuff. But there were some times when we didn't have flight ops, and the stars in the middle of the night were awesome. But every morning, the sunrise, because you'd work from 7 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. And always that sunrise was always so cool in the Pacific Ocean, even though I wasn't the most happy guy in the world out there. But it was, I loved the sunrises across the ocean. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's hopeful.
Yeah, two advocates for getting up early in the morning. Yeah.
Well, that and being in your late 50s, I go to bed early. so.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for coming in today and presenting this other side of the Mac. I mean, we see the exhibitions, and I think we're going to get a chance to talk to some of the artists, hopefully in the coming weeks. And I know I was a real fan of the Andrea Joyce Heimer exhibition. Man, nothing has moved me quite like that in a while.
That's cool.
But I'm really glad we were able to talk about the educational initiatives.
Super fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This has been a lot of fun.